This video discusses a variety of games. There won't be any heavy spoilers, but there will be discussions around events, themes, and the stories of such games. If you want to go into a game blind or you want to avoid hearing about a specific game, they're all listed in the description with timestamps, so feel free to skip around. Great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. And great things are not accidental, but must certainly be willed. Taken from an 1882 letter written by the late Vincent van Gogh, this quote, in my opinion, beautifully describes the creation of art. It's not one broad stroke of genius, but small, minute details that make a piece feel full, that make it feel complete. For example, let's look at Van Gogh's most famous painting, 1889's The Starry Night. The quiet village nestled below the hills, the cypress trees striking up the left side of the piece, the swirls of the night sky, and the radiant orange moon hanging above it all. There's not one standout feature that definitively makes Starry Night a masterpiece. It's a series of small things, small towns, small stars, small single-line oil markings of blues and yellows, unifying to create one great masterpiece. This philosophy can be applied quite broadly to any form of creative media, but the focus of today is going to be on video games. Video games sit in a unique space within the realm of arts, whereas in other media you are the viewer, sitting and watching the finalized piece of someone else's work exactly the way they intended it for you. Video games offer interaction. Sure, unless you're Toby Fox, you aren't manually making the game, but in some way, you're making the game yours. Each level you play, each item you pick up, each decision will vary between you and the next player and the next player, and you see where I'm going with this. Your experience of the game is unique to you, which is why I believe the most important core concept a game must nail down to reach the status of masterpiece is immersion. Immersion, or the act of becoming completely involved in something, is an aim that many games strive for, whether it be through story, graphics, or sound design. However, in my opinion, few actually achieve it. This can be down to a variety of reasons, but one glaring issue that sticks out to me is how a game handles its saving mechanics. Saving is a mechanic that you don't really notice when playing a game, even more so with the rise of autosaving. Despite this, it remains one of, if not the, most important mechanics in gaming. Back in the early days of gaming, implementing a save mechanic was as easy as adding another bar onto the menu screen. But as games become more cinematic with their graphics, more mesmerizing with their stories, more immersive, the issue arises on how to implement this non-diegetic mechanic into the game without ripping the player out of the world the developers have spent so long creating. Welcome back everyone to the Unajoy channel. Today we're going to be looking at the art of save systems and its implementation in video games. So, without further hesitation, let's get into the video. The use of a good save should serve at least one of four main purposes. 1. To enhance the playstyle of a game. 2. To keep players immersed in the game. 3. To aid or push forward the in-game narrative. Or 4. To reinforce running metaphors and themes throughout the game. The first set of games we're going to look at today focus more on the first principle, to enhance the playstyle of a game. To remove the ability to save is like a Buddhist monk playing Russian roulette. You've only got one shot, and if you fail, you've got to start all over again. It's pretty obvious why most games steer clear of this harsh, punishing, and frustrating mechanic, but some games lean into it. 2021's Cruelty Squad, developed and published by Finnish studio Consumer Soft Products, is a hard, punishing, and frustrating game. Set in a dystopian capitalist world, you play as a hitman, carrying out contracted killings, not worried about morality, justice, or doing the right thing, solely motivated by profit. The first thing you'll probably notice about Cruelty Squad is the graphics, the abrasive colours, the unmatched textures, the large health icon, and the border covering your screen. This game is the epitome of alienation. You're disconnected from the killings, with every NPC spewing useless garbage when speaking to you. You're disconnected from the world through the previously stated graphics, and even disconnected from the organisation, the one group of people that should probably care about you. By mission 7, they deploy another hit squad to kill you in your apartment because someone higher up accidentally labelled you as a target. Cruelty Squad effectively conveys the message that you are insignificant, and this world is not just uncaring, but impartial to your existence. You are not the protagonist of this story, you're just another guy with a gun, just doing his job. For a game visually and thematically standing in complete opposition to the player, it's no surprise that its level design carries the same sentiment. In the entirety of Cruelty Squad, there are 0 save spots. To say this game is taxing would be a complete understatement. Though there are only a couple targets in each level, the hostile NPCs will tear you down if you don't act before them. The golems will crush you alive, and each time you die, you get placed back at the very beginning. It's subtle, but after a series of deaths trying to kill just one target, subliminally, you begin to understand your place in the world of Cruelty Squad. Similar to Cruelty Squad, 2016's standout first-person shooter, Superhot, takes the no-save mechanic, but implements it into the narrative of the game in a much different way. As you progress through Superhot, you begin to realise that the game is consuming you, ripping every piece of autonomy that you once had away from you, and adding it to the all-powerful AI that is Superhot.exe. Wow, a game questioning AI's implementation and safety. I'm sure someone's made a video on that already. From flashing text telling you to click to hand over control, to your messages being edited and sent out against your will. Towards the end of the game, you're literally placed inside of a cell, being mocked by the God program to free yourself. With the line being blurred between real life and virtual reality, you, as the player, hold the devil's hand against the AI's royal flush. Once again, the lack of a saving system reinforces the lack of control you have in Superhot. The one base mechanic most players heavily rely on is taken from you, just as the AI takes over your mind throughout the game. While Cruelty Squad and Superhot use the no-save system for different reasons, one being from a lack of care and the other from an overbearing presence, they ultimately both serve the same function, to create a demanding, hostile playstyle. As we'll discover later in this video, the save style is rarely applicable in video games, especially when trying to appeal to the mass majority of players. However, I'd argue that these instances of the no-save system are executed in a way that genuinely improves the gameplay and benefits from the no-save mechanics. To truly convey their messages, both games needed some level of stakes to apply pressure onto their player. If there's nothing to lose, then you're basically a walking god, being able to hop between each autosave. Where is the challenge? Are you really a replaceable mercenary tasked with taking out CEOs if you have the ability to save scum before every shot? Does the AI really hold all authority over you, or can you just load up a different save when you're less controlled? To fully explain what I mean, I'm going to use the Call of Duty series as a comparison. I know Call of Duty isn't the only game guilty of doing this, but I would say it's among the worst offenders. Call of Duty is meant to show realism. It's meant to be the gritty, dark side of war, placing you behind the scope of a battle-hardened soldier. Sure, you can play the game on its hardest difficulty, play with one eye closed, play with a baguette as a controller, do whatever you want to limit your abilities, but with the autosave feature backing you up every step of the way, the gameplay feels hollow, it feels flimsy. When I play Cruelty Squad, I'm actually nervous when I mess up, knowing I might have to start all over again. I'm not even lying, Gorbino's quest of life in the Archon grid almost brought me to tears. But for a game to claim realism, yet drop all of the stakes in hope of an easier playstyle, feels nothing less than a fast fetishization of engaging gameplay. To remove the save is to remove the safety, exactly what games such as Cruelty Squad and Superhot need to thrive. Improving a game's playstyle is a must for any good save system, though for games with more emphasis on story and less so on a punishing experience for the player, finding a different, more immersive way to implement a save system is a necessity. The classic Capcom horror series, Resident Evil, finds its footing safely between these two camps. If you're aware of the Resident Evil series, then I assume you'd know of the typewriter saving system, but for anybody unaware, in the early Resident Evil games, typewriters act as your only means of saving. Being scattered throughout the levels, you play constantly in the hopes that the next corner you turn will present you with the safety of a typewriter. Being a survival horror game, spacing out the ability to save acts as a similar fashion to Superhot, as removing some autonomy emphasizes the already mounting fear instilled into the player. Having to reach a certain area or checkpoint before you're able to save, such as the typewriter, is essentially the same as autosaving, but the small difference in mechanics creates much more tension. It makes the game weightier. The now abandoned ink ribbon system gives us just a small look at how brutally punishing a saving system could be. In Resident Evil 0, 1, 2, 3 and Code Veronica, ink ribbons were collectible items that were found laying around the levels. These ink ribbons could then be taken to a typewriter, allowing the player to save. However, there are some conditions surrounding the ink ribbons that make them so unique. Ink ribbons took up a place in your already limited inventory, forcing you to consider inventory management when finding new items. Sure, you could take that extra gun, or maybe some much needed ammo, but if you ditch the ink ribbon, it may be a long time until you find another one. Foregoing a ribbon removes your ability to save any progress made, sometimes forcing you to walk past a typewriter, being unable to save due to your own poor inventory management. It's a gut-wrenching experience, crafted so well to fit in the survival genre. Resident Evil practically forces your hand to limit your own equipment and abilities in order to use a mechanic that most games give for free. Limiting the amount of saves a player can make in a single run is a somewhat popular save mechanic in the survival horror genre, with another example being evident in the 2013 indie hit Cry of Fear. Developed by team Psyxelar, Psyk Scalar, however you pronounce their name. Much like the typewriters in Resident Evil, Cry of Fear uses tape recorders to space out the ability to save, artificially altering the difficulty of each level, depending on where the tape recorders are laid out. Due to Cry of Fear lacking a regenerative health system, meaning that once you're damaged, you stay damaged, unless you can find a straight needle to regain health, there's immeasurably more pressure put onto the player. Pair that with the dark, cramped, liminal-like apartment blocks, Cry of Fear achieves a convincing survival horror experience. If you wanted to take this one step further, Cry of Fear offers a nightmare mode, the hardest difficulty setting. In nightmare mode, you're required to carry around a cassette with you to use the tape recorders, mirroring Resident Evil's ink ribbons, taking up a vital inventory slot. The cassette is also limited to 5 uses, meaning that save management becomes another mechanic the player must worry about. In my research for this video, I even found fan-made tutorials on the best saving locations in a run. If both Resident Evil and Cry of Fear opted for the standard autosave, or the save and quit model, they risk losing this extra sense of challenge. However, adopting unique save mechanic greatly expands the horror aspects of each game respectively, by not breaking the immersion of the game. Take this concept another step further, and you'd end up with a save system similar to that of Sega's 2014 Alien Isolation. Registration points are utilized similarly to the typewriters and tape recorders, acting as diegetic save points. Alien Isolation shows no mercy to any player trying to save, with the animation playing out in real time. This means that even while you swipe your keycard to save the game, you can still die. This gives you absolutely no time to rest. It's as if you were physically there, being hunted down by the xenomorph on the Sevastopol. All 3 of these examples serve a similar purpose, since they're all taken from survival horror games. A sense of permeating isolation is built. But creating fear isn't the only capacity of a diegetic save spot. In fact, it can achieve the exact opposite. This brings us to From Software's action RPG franchise, and the game you probably expected to come up in this video. Dark Souls hits the mark of an effective saving system, utilizing a blend of both manual saving and auto-saving. The bonfire has become one of many iconic symbols in gaming, transcending its game of origin, and for good reason. It lies among the most memorable and innovative saving systems to reach the popular consciousness of players. Unlit bonfires are scattered around for the player to discover while traversing through Lordaeron. If you choose to light the bonfire, it becomes your spawn point, replenishing all health and Estus. While yes, there's an auto-saving feature in Dark Souls, its only function is to keep your inventory saved for whenever you die or quit the game. Your character cannot spawn further along in a level via this autosave. You're always physically taken back to your most recent bonfire. The bonfire isn't utilized solely as a save point, unlike the previous examples. While resting, you can access a myriad of actions, such as improving weapons and armor, warping to other bonfire locations, managing spells, and retrieving items from the bottomless box. The Souls franchise is notorious for its difficulty, so while the spaced out save spots enhance this difficulty to prevent save scumming, once a player discovers a bonfire, it's cathartic. Dark Souls uses the imagery of the bonfire to put you at ease, so you and your character can rest after a long, grueling journey. Whether it be after a long stretch or right off the heels of a boss battle, the bonfire is there for you. It keeps to the dark fantasy theme offered by the Souls games, consolidating that all-important immersive experience, while at the same time expanding upon the universe, showing that you aren't the first to take this path. You are one of many travelers who embarked on a pilgrimage of their own. With the topic of immersion taking a front seat in this video, I can't go without discussing save systems that help push the game itself forwards. These are games that have the save mechanic so ingrained within them that it's a key part of progress. The wildly underrated and deserving of its own separate video, Rain World, a 2017 platformer developed by Video Cult, uses its hibernation mechanic tactfully. Whilst it's never forced onto the player, the act of hibernating, and therefore saving, is a cornerstone in progressing the game's narrative. In Rain World you play as a slugcat, traversing through long abandoned land now reclaimed by nature. There are no directions nor an explicit story given to you, just a yellow overseer popping in and out of walls, projecting holograms. For reasons I cannot fully explain without spoiling the lore, at the end of every cycle, or day, a torrential rain falls down upon the region, killing anything that's caught beneath. It's up to you to discover man-made shelters that can protect you against the rain, granted you foraged enough food to hibernate. Rain World thrives on integrating the player within the ecosystem, creating the atmosphere that this world is not built for you, merely the ruins of a previous civilization. But there's something so undeniably cozy about sitting in a shelter after passing through the strenuous wasteland. Seeing the door seal and your slugcat curl up, it's one of the biggest waves of relief that I've gotten in recent gaming. Rainworld's regions are designed in a way to subtly push you towards the correct path. Although it doesn't directly tell you that you're doing the right thing, upon entering a shelter, you'll occasionally meet a glowing slugcat. This indicates that while you're hibernating, you'll be treated to a dream, a one-time cutscene revealing once hidden lore. Rainworld takes the immersive save mechanics of the previous entries, but advances the concept forwards by adding access function to the mechanic, through the integration of shelters as a storytelling device. Being able to use the dream sequences to explain your plotline to the player is just another aspect of Rainworld's immersive atmosphere. It's not ripping you away from the lonely ambience of the game to throw text box after text box at you. Instead, it brilliantly utilizes the show not tell principle to keep up a veil of mystery surrounding your journey, letting the player experience the story rather than be told it directly. Having the exposition drip-fed to you throughout the game keeps the narrative alive and interesting, as each new dream sequence can help piece together previous dreams. In the 2023 DLC Rainworld Downpour, when playing as the Artificer, these dreams become interactive, allowing for player control during this short period. Rainworld is not alone in using sleeping to save. Two other examples can be found in Concerned Ape's 2016 release Stardew Valley, and in the 2004 cult classic RPG Yume Nikki, developed by Kikiyama, both of which we'll discuss next. Starting with the former, Stardew Valley is an indie video game propelled to its current success by the general population's desire for escapism. The seemingly mundane tasks of farming and caring for animals, collecting minerals and designing your own farm have only grown ever more appealing over time. Every night, the game is saved when the player goes to sleep, surrounded by things they've won as prizes for their hard work, or brought with that crazy keg money. Then, you wake up and you get to do it all again. This is much simpler than the other saving systems I've discussed today, but that's the magic of it. These save points don't have to be rare beacons in a world of hardship to be good. Something as simple as crawling into a warm bed at the end of a peaceful day strikes a chord with the players, and is a symbol of the life Stardew Valley fans wish to escape to. Walking back to your house after a late night session in the mines, knowing you're going to flee the snow and curl up, warmed by a roaring fire and satisfied by a hard day's work. It's not even up for debate how cozy this game can get. If you quit midday, you'll lose all your progress, reinforcing the spirit of hard work, and tying this game down to a somewhat realistic message. Take this from someone who actually works on a farm, not in Stardew Valley, but in real life. There is no rest until all the jobs for the day are complete, and you best know that when you wake up, they'll all be back again. Having the save system reset all of the previous day's progress, in terms of caring for crops, animals, and other agricultural duties, frames Stardew Valley in quite the absurdist light, drawing parallels to the works of Albert Camus, the myth of Sisyphus, repeating your tasks over and over again, but finding solace in such meaningless torture. I'm not going to go too depth with the absurdism here, but if you wanted to know more, I briefly covered it in an old video. There's a link somewhere, maybe in the description. Moving on to the latter, Yume Nikki tackles escapism in a much different way to Stardew Valley. The only real location in the entire game is the protagonist, Madatsuki's bedroom. Being a hikikomori, the Japanese term for hermit or complete shut-in, we play through the various dream worlds Madatsuki creates while sleeping, similar to 1998's LSD Dream emulator. Though Madatsuki's bedroom is non-functional for the most part, this is the only area where you can access her dream diary, allowing you to save your game. Due to the lack of hostile NPCs, there's no threat of death in this game, so the only time you'll realistically be saving is when you want to quit playing the game. To do this, Madatsuki must pinch herself to wake up, transporting her back to her bedroom. Then she must go to a desk and save in her dream diary. This is interesting due to the way it mirrors your actions in the real world. The same way that you turn off your computer once you've had enough, Madatsuki closes herself off from the dream world and ends her experience as well. It reinforces the themes of derealization found throughout Yume Nikki, how Madatsuki views her life as a hikikomori, just clocking in and clocking out, not really living but just surviving. The use of progressing a game through its save system shows brilliant competence on the side of the developers, pushing the use value of every segment of the game to its very limits, finding workarounds for obstructive mechanics. But as you may have picked up throughout this chapter, there's quite a lot of bleed over between the third and fourth points, 3 being to aid and push the in-game narrative forwards, and 4 being to reinforce the running metaphors throughout the game. Now this could be due to how phenomenal these games are, and how genius the people working on them are, or equally, it could be because I wanted 4 equally sized categories instead of 3 disproportionately sized categories, and struggled to divide them. Either way, it gives us a beautiful transition onto the next chapter. Like any other art medium, video games hold messages and themes they want to convey to the players. Like how developers stretch the use of in-game mechanics for story progression, these save systems do the same, but for theming and metaphors. The notoriously challenging 2018 dungeon crawler Fear and Hunger, our third and final sleep-related game, implemented one of the most unique saving systems into their game. Fear and Hunger heavily relies on RNG mechanics, also known as random number generators for its gameplay. Think of it like an online D&D, where you must do a dice roll to determine the effectiveness of your actions. Fear and Hunger is brimming with this type of gameplay, to the extent that even the save system is RNG. Upon discovering a bed, the player will be shown the option to sleep and save. You're presented with the choice of heads or tails, and after making your choice, the flip decides how your sleep will go. Winning the coin flip allows you to sleep peacefully and save your game, but losing the coin flip subjects you to a surprise attack during your sleep, not even allowing you to save. However, if you win this fight, you can't just go back to sleep. You'll have to leave, reload the area, then come back, return to the bed, perform another coin flip, and win it. As horrific as this sounds to play, I think it's a perfect way to keep the players on their toes and force them to engage with the game on the game's terms. This feature is crafted to twin the dark and brooding ambience with the trivial game mechanics. However, as some of you may know, this system was removed in the highly anticipated 2020 sequel, Fear and Hunger 2: Termina. For a game that has death as its primary learning mechanic, it may not be the best to use an RNG save system, even if it fits the aesthetics. Instead, a new and superior save system was developed. While resting in a bed or using specific items, the player will be transported atop the moon tower, when you can interact with Pekele, a servant of the Majora's Mask moon guy in the background. While on the moon tower, the player can save the game and access the Hexen, letting the player spend soul stones to upgrade their characters. But don't you worry, Fear and Hunger isn't letting you off easy the second time round. Since Fear and Hunger 2 takes place over a 3-day long festival, resting to save wastes precious time. This puts you at risk of missing vital elements of the game if you don't plan your saves clearly. For example, characters can die prematurely since you're resting and unable to get back to them in time, preventing their fate. But undoubtedly, the largest drawback of saving is the chance that the character will become moon-scorched. Quote, "Those who are affected by it appear to have severe discolored burns and unnatural scarring all across their skin, with the less severe cases still resulting in facial features being stretched and contorted." End quote. The longer you play, the more likely that one of the characters will cave to the moon scorch, and with no way to save them, they'll be left to die a brutal, agonizing death at your hands. Fear and Hunger drills into you how cold and uncaring this game can get, whether that be through forced RNG or straight up killing characters due to your poor save management. But these repeating metaphors don't always have to be negative. Undertale is a game that really needs no introduction. After being released in 2015 by indie developer Toby Fox, Undertale rose to unprecedented levels of popularity and has cemented itself in gaming history. The aptly named save points appear as a yellow star, contrasting itself from the underground you find yourself exploring. While yes, I admit it's not the most successful immersion-wise, it does play a pivotal role in reinforcing the themes of the game. Using the iconography of the star, it could be seen as a metaphor for the overworld. Frisk remembers looking up into the night sky, seeing the stars dot the night sky, and so, when they find a star in the underground, it fills them with the determination they need to escape and free the monsters. Due to the limited user interface in Undertale, the save point also serves as an extra function while taking the genocide route. Save points begin to display the amount of monsters remaining in the area, so the player will know when they can continue their murderous path. Aside from being a game about monsters, war, and freedom, Undertale is a game about emotions and the people you connect with. How hatred nor spite could free the underground, but how love and determination can. Upon interacting with a save point, you'll be greeted by a short message about your surroundings. Then that ever so iconic line fills you with determination. This repeating message of determination rings throughout the game, whichever path you decide to take. You can be determined to slaughter anyone standing in your way, or determined to unite both humans and monsters together. Either way, having the save point reinforce this helps develop the feeling that the journey Frisk takes is going to be impactful to not only the in-game characters, but to the players themselves. In the same vein, 2020's indie RPG Omori, developed by Omocat, uses Mari, Omori or Sunny's sister, as the save point. Just a quick warning, this is probably the closest I'm going to get to heavy spoilers, so if you haven't played Omori yet, you might want to skip this bit, the timestamp's in the description. During your time in Headspace, Mari and her picnic blanket repeatedly show up, allowing the player to save, restore HP, and track the progress of missions. This ingrains it into the psyche of the player that Mari's role in the story is that of the protector. It's quickly established that Mari is Sunny's older sister, and when looking through Basil's photo album, we see Mari being protective over her little brother. Mari meets Omori in different spots of Headspace, always smiling and offering help. By showing this kindness to Omori, a very obviously troubled kid, we build rapport with Mari's character, even though she's excluded from the 4 main characters. Mari isn't the only excluded character, yet we still build a bond with her due to her acting as the save point. When compared to the other excluded and wildly less interesting character, Basil, this difference becomes so much more apparent. Creating this safe presence around Mari makes the big twist of Omori hit even harder. Not only was Mari a well-loved character and a good friend to the main party, but she embodied security to the player, much like the bonfires in Dark Souls and the shelters in Rainworld. Therefore, when the player finally pieces together what Sunny has done, they're filled with horror, remorse, and most importantly, grief. Omori doesn't just present its themes clearly, but intentionally makes the player sympathise and share the grief with the in-game characters. Much of this success can be attributed to using Mari as the safe spot, building that player-character connection. So, what makes a good save system? It needs to stick to theming. Is your game about an all-powerful AI? Then stick to the theming and take away the comfort of control for your player. It needs to keep up the challenge of the game whilst also being rewarded when discovered. There's no point in having an unbelievably hard game if you can save scum before every action. The same principle goes for a game with zero stakes and overly spaced out saving spots, making it feel like a chore to get to the next one instead of an adventure. Not breaking immersion every time you save, but actively forwarding it to get every drop of use out of your game's mechanics. And finally, the save system should connect with the player, whether that be through repetition of metaphors or through characterizing the save system. Ideally, you want your player to feel something when discovering a save. Hope, catharsis, tranquility, whatever works for your game. And as we come to the end of the essay, the question may arise to you: why? What is all the need for this focus on minuscule details that most players will skip right over? Why does the art of the save system need to be perfected? To take it back to the beginning of this video, and as unfathomably cringe it is to say, video games are art. They have become an artistic, interactive media form, and we are long past due to recognize them as such. It's not just about nitpicking the tiniest details, it's about respecting the art form for what it is, and not letting these massive companies exploit your wallet for an underdeveloped game. It's undeniable that AAA gaming has taken a rapid nosedive in recent years, and as someone with over 600 hours logged on Overwatch, I can vouch for every fuck up in the modern day gaming industry. Video games were a break from it all, an escape from the monotony of late-stage capitalism. But now, even the bourgeois suits sitting in their penthouse have infected gaming. Like a cancer, they grow, and as they do, they take. They take the little remnants of art we have left. By now, you should be aware that voting with your dollar is a sham, a naive idea that struggles to make a ripple in the vast ocean of a corporation's income. Real action must be taken if we are to reclaim our deserved games. Pronouns aren't ruining games. Gender ideology isn't ruining games. Race diversity is not ruining games. The bourgeois CEOs who only care about making a quick buck off of your escapism are ruining games. You are more similar to every other gamer than you are to the company. Whether you're trans, cis, black, white, Asian, gay, straight, bi, we have a common interest with a common goal, and it's only until we can recognize the real evil and unite against them that we will see the change in the art form we love the most. Gamers of the world, rise up, for you have only your battle passes to lose. I have been Unajoy, and you have been entertained.